Today is Wednesday, and this is another episode of Fallout, and I gotta say, it was pretty good. I would consider it a filler episode slash informational, but who knows. But overall, like, comment, and subscribe. We're gonna be talking about it. It's going to be kind of a breakdown-ish, kind of, but it's gonna be a review. Overall, I'll do my review at the end. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. Like, comment, and subscribe, and let's get straight into it. So we start off with a presentation of blowing up Los Angeles. Yes, you heard me, blowing up Los Angeles. Kinda crazy. But then we cut to Barbara, and Barbara is doing her thing, man. She's listening to these proposals and ideas for vaults because she's basically the management person. Also, shout out to young Betty because Betty is her assistant. And it seems like Barbara is just like, hey, this is kind of cool, I guess. They want multiple explosions because of the population. Also, we get information on the water chips. The water chips fail at a 30% rate, which is kind of crazy. But also, they know already when they install them beforehand into each vault, which ones are going to fail. So that's kind of crazy. So that's where the notion comes from, all of the Fallout games and stuff like that, and experiments where they want to do different experiments. So and Barb's like, hey, this is kind of crazy. She's not completely on it. She's doing what she needs to do, obviously. I gotta say, Bud Askins right here, man, absolutely despicable. Bro wants to set up highways to determine how fast people can get to the vaults. So it's like, it's just the insane amount of like actual involvement they have within public infrastructure. Like, they're talking about setting up premium highways and charging people in order to get to vaults faster. Like, that's kind of crazy. But then we see younger Hank step into the room because Robco is he's very interested in the Robco technology about controlling people, and it's very interesting. He gets a little giddy because the guy opens the briefcase, and it's the technology that he's using right now in the current present, and he's like, wow. And Barbara has to like kind of settle him down, and it turns out they're paying Robco for this technology for some reason. We don't know why, but that's essentially what he says. But then we cut to Barbara, and Barbara is just, I'm glad that they gave her this sort of intro scene because she only really cares about her family, and I gotta respect that. Like, they give her food and she doesn't really eat it during the presentation because they're talking about killing civilians in like a mass casualty. Like, come on, bro, I wouldn't be eating either. But we cut to Howard and, let's just call him Cooper. Cooper is literally cooked right now. He is still impaled. People are just walking by. No one really cares. And, you know, our boy Dogmeat shows up, man. And you know what Dogmeat is always going to do, be a good boy. But what he does is he takes the hat and dips out. That's pretty much all he does. And Cooper is just chilling, bro. He's succumbing to his injuries. But then we cut to the past where Howard and Barbara are talking, and he's confronting her about the decision to drop the bomb on everybody. And you know what? I think you should probably get a little bit more information before like accusing your wife of being genocidal, but who knows. We then cut to Lucy, and Lucy is waking up in a bed, a random bed, but she's obviously in the vault that her dad was staying at, and she's looking around trying to figure out what's happening. And she sort of wakes up and she finds a note that says dial 0 when you're up, Dad. And you know what, that's kind of cute. I can't really knock him, still trying to be a good old dad. But she steps outside, sees a bunch of Legionnaire guards, and she picks up a fire extinguisher and goes to try to hit them, and they are like, hey, what's up, good old Jap, or whatever nonsense they say. But she's like, maybe I'm a little too violent. That's the gist of it. But moving on, she ends up walking through this corridor. She meets like two individuals, and they're like, hey, you take coffee. And he's like, no, you go first. And she's like, ha 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 ha. And she gets caught, and they're like, do you want coffee? And it turns out that our boy Hank has been busy. He has a series of people just working for him, man, in the slave sing-along ship style. But she ends up finding him, and he's like, hey, what's going on? How you doing? Let's talk about this book that we were reading before I tried to actually end the world or leave the vaults. But she's like, yo, what are you talking about right now, bro? What are you doing? What's all this about? And he's like, yo, look, let's talk about the book. The war, senseless violence. And he's like, there's a whole bunch of senseless violence. He tries to explain his ideology, and he's like, yo, it's not looking good and everything sucks. But then Lucy turns around, puts some scissors to his neck, and she's like, "You're coming with me." And he's like, "Oh my gosh." But she starts to read him the Vault Tech Miranda rights thing, and he's like, "I knew you weren't changed by the wasteland, and that's good, so I'll go with you." And Lucy is like baffled. She's like, "Why would you do this? What game are you playing?" And then he hits her with like, "Look, there's a time in a man's life that you need to accept responsibility," yada yada yada, bunch of nonsense. And he's like, "Yo, look, let me just show you what I've been working on, and if you want to take me, you take me." And he's trying to convince Lucy to just give him a shot and let him show her what he's been working on. And you know what? I'm not gonna lie to you. In this episode, you might have sold me, Hank, because you can't argue with the results. But we'll later see that in down the episode because he's making some pretty good points. We then cut to Maximus and Thaddeus, and they're just getting out of the suit, man. I don't know how it took a whole episode for you guys to leave the suit, but oh well, it doesn't matter. But Thaddeus and Maximus, they got to leave the suit behind because there's trackers in it apparently. And Maximus is thinking like, "Yo, what do I do with this thing? What do I want to do with my life?" And he takes a look at the cold fusion, which is pretty much infinite power at this point. And he's like, "What are we gonna do with it? We gotta give it to somebody." And Thaddeus is like, "Yo, we should just sell that." And he's like, "Brother, why would we do that?" And it's kind of hilarious because Thaddeus then lists a whole bunch of reasons on why they should do that. And they have like this heart-to-heart talk, and it's very quick, and they're just talking about how to live life after the Brotherhood. And then we cut to our boy Cooper Howard, and brother is he's going through it, man, and it's looking rough for him. But he's trying to like pull himself off the pole, reciting his family members and the reason for living, because he's slowly turning into a ghoul. But it doesn't end up working. As you can see here, he falls all the way back down the pole, and some big giant thing, not a super mutant, possibly a super mutant, pulls him to this carriage thing, and he has like this little glowing lantern thing, which is pretty cool, but it turns out to be uranium, and it's pretty cool. And then we cut to Vault 33. We're back at Vault 33, and apparently you can't get in to the incest club because you're cousins now. We need better standards than that. I don't know what that means. They're having a party, they're living life, they're eating all the snacks, the rations are going crazy. It's all good, everything's good, but I need everyone to understand that this is the only couple that really wants to do incest. I just wanted to point that out. But they're having a party, they're doing their thing, and the guards come in, and he's like, "Yo, you need to shut this down." And he's like, "I want to talk to Betty," and he talks to Betty, and Betty is pleading with this guy like, "Look, the water chip's dead, we gotta lock in." And then they start spouting the most American shit I've ever seen. And it's kind of crazy because it's like Betty has already seen this problem, and it's like a level of selfishness that's occurring. And she's like, I see how I have to deal with you guys now. I see what needs to happen, and I don't know if it's going to end well for those guys. But then we cut to Vault 32, and the guy who was asking Steph all those questions has gone missing, and Chet is like, "Oh my goodness, we're about to be cooked." They're like, "Yo, we should probably go look for this guy." And Chet doesn't say anything, but he gives a look of like, "Hey, don't ask any questions." But then they start talking about how, "Hey, congratulations, you and Steph." And he's like, "What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about." And he's like, "They're like, you're a fiance, you're getting married tomorrow." But Chet goes and finds a poster, and it says, "Hey, Chet and Steph are getting married tomorrow at the atrium." And it's not, he's scared. But we cut then to the ghoul, and the ghoul is like, "Yo, I getting healed. The mutant person has put an irradiated something in him," and he is just spewing nonsense about how his only purpose has been to find his wife and kid, and he has now done that, and he does everything solo. And then the mutant's like, "Hey, look, if you are not trying to join our cause, I gotta kick you out of here, but I'll heal you though." So he does that, and he's gone. But then we cut back to the past, and Barbara is pretty much saying like, "Yo, look, what do you want me to do? I'm trying to save our family." She's like, "Wouldn't you kill 1 million people or 1 billion people to save our daughter?" And you know what? She's not wrong there. She's like, I would be like, "Yo, look, I'm killing these people regardless, for my fam and my friends and the real ones. But it does show that before the meeting of when she announces that they're gonna drop the bombs, she does try to get any information that she wants. But our boy shows back up, and I originally had so many questions about this character, and he shows up and says pretty much, we're all just cogs in a wheel. You're gonna do what we say, the Enclave, and you're gonna say the line that we're gonna drop the bombs. And she does, and Howard's like, yo, who are these people? And she's like, yo, look, you don't want the smoke. You don't want the smoke. He leaves to go find Hank to try to navigate that scenario and stop the cold fusion swap. But we get back into Hank and Lucy, and then we cut to them, and basically we're back in the corridor where everybody is working, and Lucy's like, we gotta let these people go, and Hank's like, sure, why not? We can do that. And they're all like, I don't really want to leave. It's good here, it's safe, we're all having fun, we all used to be killers, murderers, and it's not good for any of us. But then they take a Legion person and the NCR person saying that the NCR got captured, and basically that guy was non-functioning, and now he becomes functioning. But she has to press the red button in order for them to become back normally and mind controlled. So she presses the red button, and he basically shows her what his experience was like. They go from fighting each other, hating each other, to the Legionnaire person who's extremely angry, is just pure like, hey, what's up, bud? You got staples in your head. Let me get those out for you. Let's go talking over here and let's get you all healed up. And it's kind of, you can't argue with the results of Hank's experiment. I'm not gonna lie to you. So we then cut to Hank and Cooper, and Cooper's has gotten Hank drunk, and he's like, yo, I always liked you, bruh. And Cooper's just trying to get and figure out what this thing is, and as you can see, it's the gun from season 1, episode 1. But Barbara shows up, and she's obviously like kind of disappointed, but she's not really. But then Hank's like, yo, what is this? What are we doing? And it turns out that cold fusion has to be embedded in someone's neck because the technology and standard has been used 200 years later, obviously. But we then cut to Dogmeat, and Dogmeat interrupts these two, Thaddeus and Maximus, and takes the hat, and I'm sure Maximus recognizes the hat, takes them all the way to where he finds Cooper. And Cooper is out of his mind, and he's like, oh man, this sucks. And the new users of the power armor meet the old user of the power armor, which is actually pretty cool. So overall, this episode was not really the most like action-packed heavy, but there was a lot of philosophy talk, a lot of parallels to going back and forth in the past and in the future, whether what's right, what's wrong, do we have control, is there power, what do we do with everything. Overall, I really did like this episode. I'm going to have to give it a ranking of 9 out of 10. I think all the philosophy talk is something I really enjoy. But overall, that's all I have for today's video, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hopefully you enjoyed the vibes.